Hello, everyone. My name is Josh Chan, and I guess I thought I'd start by introducing myself briefly. In the time that I have today on stage, I'm going to try to cover a few points, none too in-depth, maybe 15, 20 minutes or so. I believe after that there is a time for Q&A, and then after that, I'd be happy to stick around during, I think, the lunchtime and maybe meet more of you there. So let's see. I live here locally. I'm actually just up the road a bit in Palo Alto. And I guess my connection to you guys, even tangentially as I understand, is that most, if not all of you, are educators in some way or another. Actually, before I talk about myself, if I could do a quick maybe show of hands poll. How many of you are classroom teachers here? Okay. What else could there be? Any librarians out here? No? Well, what are some of the other non-teaching folks that are around? Or I'd be interested to hear how you're connected to education. Feel free to shout out. I appreciate that.
Makerspace coordinator.
Oh, of course. Yeah, makerspaces. I love those. And
I run a coder dojo.
Yeah, Coder Dojo, excellent. Oh, and then of the teachers that are here, could you raise your hand if you're elementary? Okay. And then I guess secondary, middle school, okay, and then high school. And any higher ed, college? Okay, cool. So wow, I'm going to try. That's a very nice breadth of that. So I guess my connection there. I'm going to talk mostly about my company today later on. But before, I guess to introduce myself, before founding LightUp, I was actually a teacher at Palo Alto High School. And I was teaching freshman biology. So I guess I have a little taste of what your lives are like as teachers, and I certainly have a lot of respect, all the more having had some time in the classroom myself. So I guess just as a brief intro, I graduated from Stanford, and I actually my major was in human biology, which is a very popular major there. And around my junior year or so, I started thinking more about what I wanted to do. I was sort of that, I don't know if any of you guys were like this, the type of student that didn't come in with much of a master plan. It was more just like amazement at all the cool things you could learn there, and I took classes in pretty much every department that I could, but I had to eventually buckle down, and I chose biology, and I did a lot of things in that realm. But kind of near the middle end of my junior year, I started thinking more about education. And looking back, it's a little hard to pinpoint exactly the thinking, but last night I was trying to figure out where did that come from. And one thing that kind of came to mind is my father, actually. So my dad's been in education his whole career, and he's been a great role model for me. He's worked actually in the community colleges district for his whole career, basically, and just seeing him tirelessly be an advocate for those students. He's now at Oakland working at Laney College, was definitely a factor there, I think. And I think another factor was being kind of the ambitious college student, wanting to change the world. I was sort of thinking, what are ways that I as an individual can make an impact? And I recall one time kind of thinking through, the big problems facing society, and being kind of the arrogant, college student, thinking, well, these are the things that I want to tackle, with my time here and with my talents, hopefully. And I remember thinking the environment is really important. That's something that continues to be on many people's minds, right? You have climate change, you have environmental degradation, and I thought, and that's one reason why I did take quite a few courses in that realm. I thought this is really something that I want to do something about, and I nearly majored actually in environmental science there. Another one was human health, and I definitely had some pressure thinking to be a doctor, and that's a great career to go into as well. And I thought, well, what better way to make an impact on people's lives by healing them, taking care of them when they're sick, and going down that path. But the third one, and the one that's relevant here, I think, is at some point in my college career, I started thinking about education, and for whatever reason that popped into my head. And in some ways, I sort of came to the realization that might be one of the most overarching sort of impacts that I can make. And by that I mean, being an educator of any sort, you're touching people at, pretty much their most sort of impressionable time, as they're young and as they're growing up. Educators spend so much time with people, in the class and out into the class. And in a way, you're sort of impacting all of those other fields that I mentioned and many more, because you are basically, every day you go to work and do what you do, you are changing people's lives at that early stage when they may not even know what they want to do from there. So you could be helping inspire and educate future doctors and engineers and innovators and inventors. So anyway, kind of a broad thing that I hope to share is my strong belief that education is really, really a worthy endeavor, and one that I'm proud to be part of in my own way, and I respect all of you for being part of as well. So I guess a bit as it relates to I want to have to connect this back to Light Up. After my undergraduate degree, I stuck around and did a master's in education at, if you guys are familiar with the Stanford Teacher Education Program, the STEP program, so I stayed for that. And shortly after that, one of my professors introduced me to another guy who was very passionate as well about education, but he came from a very different background. He was an engineer. He was doing his PhD in electrical engineering, and essentially, fast forward a couple years, this was around 2013, we clicked really, and then we found a lot of common interests and common passions. So we kind of decided to start a company around this. And so that was a big step. For him, he left his PhD program. For me, it was deciding not to take a full-time teaching job at the time and trying out this risky endeavor. So the guy in the middle is the guy I'm talking about. That's me on the left. And so as I mentioned, I had some background in science education. He came from the world of software engineering. And actually, I guess the lady on the left was our first hire, and she's a very accomplished computer vision engineer that I'll talk a bit more about her work later. So in short, the thing that we came together around was this idea that there were ways to use technology that were not getting through to kind of the people that needed it the most. And we decided to focus our efforts on a very specific area based on sort of our interests and passions, and that was electronics and circuits, learning about electronics and circuits. So basically, I'm going to compress like years of work into like 5 seconds, but we were invited to attend a program in China, a startup accelerator. So we flew to China, like in a very, very sort of rushed manner. We basically took this idea we had from prototype to eventual production. We ran a Kickstarter campaign. We started talking to retailers. So once again, this is a lot of happening in a short amount of time, but this is the end result of that first effort. And what this is one of the kits that we now sell. And this is a educational toy that's available now on Amazon, at every Barnes & Noble store in the country, and hundreds of other stores around the country as well. So we've been very proud of what we built, and I guess I'm kind of leaving you guys hanging here what it is, but I can play a quick video of it, a video that we have on our website, actually. I think is that the next slide? Yeah. So this is just a short or a promo video that we made. Actually, I just filmed it locally at a friend's house, but you can get a taste of what this first product we made is.
Can you pass me the battery? What is it? That doesn't sound right. Much better. Kathy, that car got stuck. Could you help me? Sure. My car's under there. I think we need to build a flashlight. Start with these. It's not working. I can show you why. We need to connect this. See, the electricity can go all the way around now. Found it. Yes!
Chris, not on the counter. You know better. No, no, no.
dancing? That is perfect. What else have you been doing today?
Me and Macy made a music box, and then I helped Mommy scare Chris off the counter.
You did.
And whenever he walked.
So yeah, that's a bit longer than I remember it, but it kind of showed a few examples of projects that you can make with our kit. And if you may or may not saw that, but they were basically on the physical side, we have these magnetic blocks that can snap together, so kids are building electronic projects with it. And then we've built a lot of smarts into an iPad app that kids can download. And there's a few features that we try to highlight there. One was something called the Smart Lens, and that's where she was able to take a picture, and then we basically give kids X-ray vision. We show them what's going on in their circuit, how to fix it if something isn't working. So that's kind of the idea there. As well as a programming element, I guess relevant, us being all at the Computer History Museum, where we've developed an interface where kids can wirelessly program their projects right from their iPad, even starting with a drag and drop interface, so something like Scratch, to make it very easy. So I wanted to talk about this to give you a bit of background of kind of the work that's led us here. But I'm actually going to not spend too much more time on this, except to say that this product is obviously meant more for use by yourself than on a stage. So if you guys would like, I'm happy to show you more if you want to get me, if you want to check out the kit, or catch up with me in the future. So for the second part of my talk, I was kind of racking my brain to figure out how to say something with a more definite point of view, and I actually kind of changed my mind there. I realized that that resistance I was feeling could maybe be turned into an opportunity, and here's what I mean by that. You're kind of catching us at a pretty unique time as a company. So we have a product on the market, it's been well received, and we're still actively expanding that community of users. But we're also kind of, like any good startup, have an eye to the future. And there's something that we're very excited about, and I'm pretty excited actually to share a little bit of what we've been working on with you today. A lot of them are demos or prototypes, so it's not like this product in that it's polished and on the market. So sorry, teachers out there, it's not really ready for immediate use. But the reason why I think it could be an opportunity is because I sort of feel, as a former teacher myself and others, that there are often a lot of people, a lot of outsiders that are very well-meaning who look into education and see all the problems and kind of think like I said, well-meaning, these are the problems, let's build solutions for this. And there's some inherent distaste that I feel about that, because I think it's really hard when you're not a teacher. And even, talking about myself, I'm no longer a teacher, really, so I feel like I myself don't have the best touchstone that you guys do, being there every day. So I thought maybe instead of just trying to give a big proclamation about what to do and what the future is going to be, instead I would show you a bit of what we've been working on. Think of it more like the start of a conversation that can continue into lunch. And I'm local, I think many of you guys are, so happy to even continue this after this event is long gone. And what I want to talk a bit about is our thoughts on the world of virtual reality and augmented reality. Could you raise your hand if you've heard of augmented reality, actually? Okay. And what about virtual reality? Nice. So a bit of both. I think VR, I wouldn't be surprised if that's a little more familiar to people out here. But it's becoming a very big deal. I just was thinking that a few weeks ago, I was in the lobby of this museum at a VR event, actually, that was hosted by UNICEF. And they were talking about how to use it for social good. And in a couple weeks, I'm going to be back here again for another event hosted that's about virtual reality. So if you guys aren't already aware of this, it's definitely picking up steam. And the reason why I want to talk about it is because me and my team have pretty strong thoughts about how augmented reality and virtual reality are already changing the way people learn and the way that we think it can transform how people learn. So partly I'm going to put forward some opinions we have. I'll show you some videos of things that we've been working on. And in the Q&A maybe, I'd love to hear some of your thoughts on those, concerns, questions, suggestions, whatever you guys might have in mind. Does that sound all right for a direction? Okay, so it's going to be a bit of unorthodox of a talk in that regard. So let's see. The next one here. Oh, and yeah, I just want to say that in addition to conveying hopefully some of what we're working on, I thought that this method of presentation could also kind of give you guys a bit of a taste of what it's like on my side, which is going from the education world to kind of the startup world. It's pretty messy around here, and there's definitely a lot of, rough edges there. Things move quickly, things break, and in a way, my presentation might reflect that, for better or worse. So, we had some ideas early on about augmented reality, and for those of you that haven't really looked it up in a dictionary, not that there's not really one agreement definition, but generally the way that we see it as methods of presenting information in the real world. So, with virtual reality, if you guys have tried it, you typically wear something or hold something up and you block out your whole world and, you just see this virtual world or game or movie. The thing about augmented reality, though, is that you're using the same power that powers virtual reality, but you're allowing it to live in the real world. So there's several examples of that already. Google made something called Google Glass a few years back. Microsoft just launched a product called a HoloLens that you kind of wear, and it puts things in front, like before your eyes. There's another company called Meta, which is doing some cool things there too. So we started thinking about, what is possible for us with augmented reality, and it's not entirely a foreign concept. In the past year or two, it's gotten very exciting. But if you guys were paying attention earlier, I did mention that even back in 2013, when we started the company, we had actually been dabbling with AR as well, in the sense that we would allow kids to take an iPad and record and take a picture of their circuit. So, I can just say from personal experience that in 2013, AR was not nearly as highly spoken of and thought of as it is now. So we kind of thought, well, we've been interested in it. The technology has gotten way better in the last couple of years and way more affordable. So what might we be able to do now? This was a kind of a mock-up that we made in kind of our early days of brainstorming. We thought, well, maybe we could use some sort of viewer like that, and then we could teach geometry in better ways. So we have kind of this idea that if you guys, have any of you guys used a geoboard before or used it in your classroom? So yeah, you guys recognize that. It's the rubber bands on the pegboard. And we actually made a working demo of this, and it was pretty cool. And this is a mock-up of that, showing like you could maybe overlay the equations, like Pythagorean theorem. You could contextualize it in real life. In this case, how do you measure the dimensions of the spaceship, and so on. And I think the reason why that we started down this path is that I came out of learning about education, at Stanford and others, and was kind of drilled into my head by my professors who were very constructionist and so on. That this idea of one size fitting all has sort of been the paradigm for education for many, many decades, and it's, in our opinion, it's partly been driven by technology. It's easy to make a PowerPoint. It's easy to give a lecture, or easier, I should say. But those forms of delivery obviously don't account for the individual students that you have in your classroom. Famously shown, if you guys remember the Another Brick in the Wall by Pink Floyd, where they have the video of all the students on the conveyor belt. That's a pretty, I think, graphic example of maybe the worst interpretation of that model of education. And we have an idea that technology, including AR, could help you guys as educators, with the idea that we're never really going to get, I think, at least with our current budget and way of thinking, to the point where you have a teacher per student, right? We're looking at 30 students per teacher, upwards of 30 probably. But with technology and a qualified, educator, facilitator there, we wonder what might be possible. And this is a fact that I read that was pretty stunning to me. It says here, it's a quote from the report, for each year a student progresses in school, they should become more engaged, not less. But what Gallup poll deemed it, they called it the school cliff. I don't know if you've seen this before, but they kind of did these polls and showed that, for US students, they measured engagement in some way, how engaged are you in the classroom? And you see it drops from 76% for elementary school students to 61% at middle school to 44% at high school. And it's kind of perplexing, why that is. I don't even have the answer myself, but I agree with their, conclusion that it is a monumental collective national failure, for everyone, not just people in education, because these are the people that will go on and build our society. These are our children. So, we're thinking, is there a way that we can, help with this trend, or help reverse this trend? And we thought from some early glimpses of what is possible with these technologies, that there could be something there. So I'll play, going back to what I was saying, I'm really giving you guys a raw look at kind of our exploration process here. Here's another kind of early experiment we made. And I don't know if you noticed, but we actually took our old blocks. These are the blocks that we used for our circuit kit that you saw in the video earlier. And we just stuck some stickers on there. So it was a very quick and dirty prototype. And we were just kind of playing around with what might be possible with the build of our app. So we thought, well, one thing is, in this case, it's geometry lessons of sorts, I guess, with angles and polygons. We thought maybe something with chemistry. So we were, once again, using the same exact blocks, but we just changed the visual. And then we were finding ways to kind of represent, what happens when you connect these atoms. We did something with Hot Wheels. Oh, and then here's circuits again that you guys saw already. So that was a few months ago, actually. So we've actually progressed a bit beyond that. And this is one of our more recent videos. This will be the last one I show you, and I think then I should probably wrap up. This one, actually, I was just telling Kate earlier, this is probably the first time I've showed it publicly to this large of an audience. It's certainly the first time that it's going to be recorded. So it's very, once again, it was kind of an internal video we made. And in this case, I'll give a bit of a background. The reason why we went here is we thought, with augmented reality and these technologies, they're really incredible. But just like any technology, there are ways to use it well, we think, and ways to use it poorly. And as a former science teacher, I did think, well, there's really incredible things around us, like natural physical phenomena, and a lot of them are taught right now. In this case, I'm going to show you something about magnetism, but the way they're taught is pretty woefully underpowered, I guess. It's, like, because it might be on a textbook page or a video at best, you lose that sense of immersion. You lose that sense of, the 3D nature of the phenomenon itself. So that's one idea, and we thought, well, magnetism, that's something that everyone has to learn. Everyone kind of knows about. Obviously magnets are familiar to all of us, but do we really, you guys might disagree, but I still think magnets are magic. So I think there's that element too. Magnetism is just kind of mysterious, even to the people that study it in some ways. So we tried something out where we decided to kind of push the boundaries of what's possible with computer vision, real-time tracking, all these sort of technologies that are becoming increasingly available to us now that smartphones are becoming so increasingly ubiquitous.
In this demo, we'll explore how magnets interact with each other. First, look at the light-up projection mat. Now, hold one of the light-up magnets above the projection mat and look at it. The arrows around the magnet demonstrate the force of magnetic attraction. The arrows point at the south pole of the magnet. The lines now shown around the magnet represent the magnetic field. The magnetic field interacts with other magnetic objects. Now, get a second light-up magnet and look at both magnets. Each magnet has a north pole and a south pole. See what happens when you push the north poles of both magnets together. That pushing feeling is repulsion. Similar poles push each other apart. Another way to say this is that they repel each other. Now turn one magnet around so that a north pole is near a south pole. That pulling between the magnets is attraction. North and south poles of magnets are attracted to each other. When two magnets stick together due to attraction, their magnetic fields combine into one. Now we'll try an activity using these principles.
I'm going to pause it there. So yeah, that actually it's funny. We've come a little bit way, so it looks a little bit nicer now, but I hope it conveys sort of this potential that we think is there. In this case, we just took two real magnets. I can't convey that, unfortunately, through video, but so you're able to manipulate these real magnets. You can feel the forces, the same forces that you guys would be familiar with. You can put two ends together and they might repel. You can put two other ends together and they'd attract. In this case, we thought, well, we can provide this visualization in 3D. And some of you may kind of have done, iron filing labs in your class or seen them. And that's, if you think about it, kind of like a 2D cross-section of what we thought we could show in 3D with augmented reality. So, and As you can tell, our robot voice will not match any of you in the charisma department, but it was an early start for us, right? So we are kind of excited about that. I guess the last thing I'll leave you with is there's a lot of companies that are now providing kind of grand visions for what's going to happen down the road. I took 2 pictures from a company called Magic Leap, which is you may have heard of. They've released some videos, demos, just like I showed you today, much more elaborate. They have a lot more money than we do, a lot more people working on it. But this idea that here they had one video showing a whale jumping out of a school auditorium and all the students just being amazed. Another demo where there's kind of a solar system that's floating in front of the eyes of someone, and they're able to manipulate it. So, as a small team, as a local startup, we're very excited by where this is going. There are many companies that are very excited about it for other reasons, for entertainment, for gaming, so on, for enterprise. We personally think that it could have a great impact in education, and we're certainly building out what ways that we think it can have that. But I guess now I'll end here. Love, as I said earlier, to hear what you guys think. Or ask me any questions to learn more. And otherwise, I appreciate your time today.
Great, so I'd like to open the floor to questions. We have a few minutes for questions. Anyone have any thoughts, questions, ideas? Okay, Kate's got a microphone over there.
Excellent. I'm curious if you've read Ready Player One.
Read what, sir?
Ready Player One?
I have not.
Okay, you need to.
Okay, I'll get it from you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Well, for any of you that have read that out there, I mean, we're talking about augmented reality and virtual reality. They define a whole education system in this book, and it's an interesting, fairly Pollyannish look at the future in that regard. But the future is bleak, but not in the virtual world. So.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Another comment and question over here.
Hi, I'm a makerspace / math science teacher, and I think that you guys are right on track with your experimenting and stuff with augmented reality, because I think we're in a key moment in time where people are realizing the appeal, and I can't think of a better example than like Pokemon Go, for example. Really simple platform on the surface, but people have really taken to it, and it's basically what it is augmented reality, and it's like a novelty. And some people believe that it's going to be here for a little while, it's going to go away. Yeah. But I doubt that. I think that companies are really taking notice of like how the interest in augmented reality and that kind of technology. And I think it's like there's no way we can go back from here. And if we can build on that in education, I think kids are really going to take interest, and it's going to move the education sector forward, I think. So,
thank you.
All right. Any other questions, thoughts, ideas? Any of our student volunteers have any thoughts or questions? No? All right. Well, I think that we'll probably have some more conversations throughout the next hour or so. Josh is going to be hanging out with us. So I guess just before you wrap up, I guess I have a question. So we have an audience where we have wonderful student volunteers here today helping out, and we have fantastic educators from all parts of the community. And I'm wondering what your words of wisdom and advice would be for them, just kind of in closing, and how, what you've learned on your path and what you could share with them in that sense. Either the students or the educators.
Yeah. Well, I guess maybe to the students first. I think kind of echoing what the gentleman there said, it's a very exciting time to be where you are, and both here in the Bay Area and also where you are at your life journey. So I think it's just really exciting that you have the chance to play with these things, learn with these things that a lot of the older generations didn't, and it's going to make so much more possible. I mean, both the combination of the technologies that are coming out, the platforms coming out, as well as kind of what has always been important, which is your internal, passion and drive, because that's kind of what's going to put you through the hard times, getting your homework done, getting your reports done, in college, getting your problem sets done, and doing whatever you end up doing. So yeah, I just encourage you to be persistent. I think, if you guys have, studies have shown that that really is the key thing that differentiates, successful outcomes from less successful ones, having grit and determination. It's not, pure intelligence or being born to the right person. It's a lot of it is really just your ability to persist. So, and then for the educators, I had a hard time when Kate asked me that question. She asked for that words of advice that you guys saw right before I got on stage. And since I thought about that so long, I think I'll just kind of talk a little bit about that. It probably was the longest advice that you saw, and that barely fit on this slide. But from my time in the classroom, I did notice that there is a very understandable, very understandably, a lot of educators have a reluctance to use too much technology, new technology especially, in their classrooms. There are certain ways of doing things. I met teachers who had been at the school for 30 years who had a binder, and it was like, this is how I do, they had their year planned out so well. And I was amazed as a new teacher. So there's that element. And I just realized I'm partly preaching to the choir given the event and so on, and the type of educators that you guys probably already are. But nonetheless, I'll just say that I encourage you to take the risk. I feel like on the upside, you can really transform your students' lives in a way that, because you're willing to try out something new, whether it's a new technology or a new technique. And the downside, really, I feel is largely covered by the fact that your students, I think, will appreciate that risk-taking, and they'll respect you for that, being willing to go out on the limb and try something new. So I would just encourage you guys to keep that in mind. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much for being here today. It was really exciting hearing about all the amazing work you're doing, and thanks for sharing your story with us. Great.
Okay.